Hi guys, and welcome back to the Aspiring Home Cook. My name is Trisha, and today I've got an absolute treat for you. I'm going to take you through some of my favorite summer-friendly vegan meal ideas. These will have a mix of salads, stir fries, all those kind of meals that are really quick to put together because when it's hot, you really don't want to spend too much time in the kitchen slaving over the stove. So our first recipe is going to be a nice, quick and easy one. I'm going to make a vegan version of my favorite tuna salad. Before switching to a plant-based diet, tuna salad was one of my absolute favorite meals. And if I was hard-pressed to find something to throw together quickly as a lunch, I'd just quickly whip up a tuna salad and call it a day. Now this salad tastes very similar to a good old tuna salad. It's got all those essential flavors just without the fish. Here the chickpeas replace the fish. So I'm just going to drain out a can of chickpeas here. You can also use dry chickpeas that you soak overnight and then boil till tender. I'm just going to save some of this liquid, which is called aquafaba, that comes really handy when trying to replace egg whites in desserts. Now for the salad, the first thing that I'm going to do is mash up my chickpeas. You don't want a creamy mash or a puree. You just want to break down some of those chickpeas to give you a slightly more flaky feel like you'd get from a can of tuna. You can either use a fork or a potato masher to do this. If you're really in a hurry, throw this in a food processor, but just remember to pulse it a few times to break things down, just like so. You're not looking for a puree. You want some slightly larger pieces and some that are slightly smaller. Now from here on, these additions are completely up to your preferences. Here's how I like to make mine. I'm going to start off with a couple of heaped tablespoons of some vegan mayo. I whip up a batch of my own mayo at home. If you haven't seen that recipe yet, I'll leave a link to that recipe here for you. To this, I'm going to add a tiny bit of mustard. You can use Dijon mustard. If using Dijon mustard, I probably would add a little more. Use as much as you'd like to taste. This is hot English mustard, so I'm using it very sparingly. And to this, I'm going to add a dash of apple cider vinegar, about a spoonful. Again, this you can add to taste. I like to just mix up these three ingredients right over the chickpeas itself. It just helps by cutting down on the number of bowls you need to wash. And once you've sort of mixed the mayo and mustard, mix that entire dressing through the chickpeas. On to the veggies. Here's the assortment I'm using today. I'm using a little bit of red onion, some celery, red and green peppers or capsicums, some olives, some cucumber, some jalapeno, and some cornichons. You can also use pickles if you don't have access to cornichons. I like to have the olives, the pickled jalapenos, and either the pickles or the cornichons chopped up into little pieces. I don't like a great big chunk there. You can either slice these up or chop them up finely before you add them to the salad. And now it's just a matter of taking all your veggies that you've chopped up and add them in. You can use tomatoes if you like. Somehow I find that moistens the salad a little too much and makes it a little soggy, so sometimes I add it, sometimes I don't. Give everything a good mix to make sure that that chickpea mix has incorporated well through the other veggies in the salad, and then simply taste and adjust seasoning as required. I've added a little more salt and a dash of lime juice because I find that fresh citrus always brightens the flavors a whole lot. Once everything's mixed thoroughly, we're ready to plate up. I'm going to start off by getting some greens together. As you've noticed, I've not added any leaves into the mix. You can simply chuck those in, or if you want to make it stand out a little better, here's what I do. I'm starting with some lettuce that I'm cutting really finely into thin, almost shreds. And I'm going to start by layering this cut lettuce at the bottom of my plate. I also had another bag of mixed salad greens in the fridge, and in my salads I like the idea of mixed greens in there. It adds a little more complexity to the flavors of the salad, but you can use whatever greens and whatever salad leaves you'd like over here. I'm going to top the greens with our chickpea salad mix. And for one last touch, I'm going to add in some hemp seeds that I'm just going to sprinkle over the salad, and some roasted pumpkin seeds or pepitas. You can use any variety of seeds. You can even use chopped nuts if you'd like on your salad. And that's our chickpea salad or vegan tuna salad ready to be devoured. This is a really filling salad and is perfect to have on its own for lunch. On to our next meal. This meal is inspired by the McRib. I'm just going to make it healthier and I'm going to make it tastier and vegan, of course. Whenever summer rolls around, you always see these McDonald's ads for the McRib all over the place. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to try and veganize it, and that way I can enjoy it all through the year. Now, McDonald's does not carry a vegan version on their menu, and even if they did, I highly doubt I would go there. I can barely ever stand their stuff. However, I found the concept of this McRib very intriguing, so I thought I'd whip up my very own version. And to go with my McRib, of course, I'm going to make some potato wedges. Typically, you would get fries at McDonald's, but I don't have the patience to sit and chop up my potatoes into fries. So I'm just going to whip up some wedges instead. These wedges will be cooked off in the air fryer, so they'll take about the same amount of time that it takes for me to put my sandwich together. I like to drizzle a little olive oil over the potatoes. This helps any seasonings that you use actually cling to those pieces of potato. And I'm keeping it really simple today. I'm just going to season it with a little bit of salt. Give it a good toss, and in a single layer, pop it into your air fryer. Now, if you don't have an air fryer, you can also bake these off in the oven. They'll just take a little longer, or you can even pan fry these off. Now, this typically takes me about 12 to 15 minutes on an average at 180 degrees. This, of course, will depend on the size of the potato and the wedges. And I like to go in 6-minute increments and then just add on any time needed till the potatoes are cooked to my liking. With the wedges cooking away, we're going to work on our McRib now. So for the rib portion of my sandwich, I'm just using some organic firm tofu. This is the pack that I usually get from Coles. Now, this is not sponsored in any way, shape or form. This is just the brand that I prefer. I'm just going to use some paper napkins to absorb any excess moisture. You can use a kitchen towel as well. And I'm just going to cut these up into slices. You don't want them very thick, and at the same time, you don't want them very thin. And to make these a little more manageable while frying as well as while eating, I'm just going to cut those slices in half. Now I'm going to start off by heating a pan on medium heat. You don't want the pan screaming hot, but the pan's got to be hot. Start off by drizzling a little oil, and we're going to dust these tofu pieces with some corn flour. What you're looking to do is cover all those pieces on all sides with a little bit of corn flour. You don't want a thick batter. Just dry corn flour does the trick really well. It gives you a nice crusty sort of outer coating on these pieces of tofu. Dust off any excess corn flour that might be on those pieces and carefully place them in the pan. Now, the tofu doesn't take very long to cook off. In a couple of minutes, you will see that the bottom edge has crisped up really well. You won't get a really dark golden brown, but this is what you're looking for. Just feel the edge of that piece of tofu, the bottom edge that is, and you'll notice a beautiful crust. When it's reached that stage, you're ready to flip the tofu over and cook it on the second side as well. If the pan seems a little too dry, feel free to add a tiny touch more of oil and cook it off on the second side till you get that beautiful crust going on the second side as well. Now, for the sauce component, you simply need a good barbecue sauce. This is by far one of my favorites, but I am going to add a few more things just to take it up another notch. I'm going to add a little pinch of some extra hot cayenne pepper, a little Tabasco sauce for added smokiness and a little more punch. Stir everything well to mix it up and adjust the seasoning to your liking. At least that's how I do it. It was a little too tart for me, so I've just gone in with a tiny splash of maple syrup. Give that a good stir to mix everything up really well. And we're going to brush some of this barbecue sauce on those cooked tofu pieces. At this stage, make sure that your heat is on low because the sugars in the sauce may cause it to burn a little extra quickly. Brush that sauce all over the tofu pieces. Again, you can use as much sauce as your heart desires. I'm starting off with a small portion here because I don't want it to burn. And then quickly flip your tofu pieces onto the other side. And we're going to add another brushing of that barbecue sauce on this side as well. Remember to work quickly at this point because that barbecue sauce has the tendency to burn really fast as well. And somehow I missed that footage. Simply flip those pieces over on the second side for a few seconds just to kind of start getting a little char mark on the barbecue sauce and take the tofu off the pan immediately. Now we're moving on to making our McRib sandwich. I'm starting with some store-bought ciabatta bread. You can use burger buns, you can use any bread rolls of your choice. Smear some of that barbecue sauce on there, and I'm going to place a couple of the pieces of tofu on the bottom half of the bread. Now the McRib that you get at Macca's is usually dripping with barbecue sauce, so at this point you can really add a little more sauce on to those pieces of tofu. Use as much or as little as you'd like to make this the perfect sandwich for you. And now for those quintessential McRib condiments, I'm going to place a few slices of pickles on top and some slices of onion. I'm going to throw in a little extra onion than what you'd find in a typical McRib sandwich because we like that extra hit of onion. And pop the top of that sandwich on there, and what you've got is a beautiful vegan McRib sandwich. You can stop right there and enjoy your sandwich. This is typically how it is served at Macca's. However, I'm going to throw in a little lettuce in there just to add some green to it. This, I feel, increases the crunch factor and the overall flavor and sandwich slash burger eating experience. Now I'm serving this up with those potato wedges, which are ready by now. I'm just seasoning the wedges with a little bit of freshly cracked black pepper and some salt to taste. And there you have it, a vegan version of the popular McRib. This is so tasty and so easy to put together. It makes for a really quick and easy lunch. Now for lunch number 3, I have this quick, easy and stunning Thai-style chili basil stir fry. I've got an assortment of veggies here. I've got some onion, peppers, red, yellow and green, some zucchini, some carrot. I've sliced the carrot fairly thin so that it cooks through evenly. I've chopped some broccoli florets into smaller bits, some sliced mushrooms, some snow peas, and this is such a great recipe. You can use up whatever veg you like and whatever you've got available locally to you. Now, since this is a Thai chili basil fried rice, you're going to need some chilies. I'll start off with one and see how I go. And I've also got here 3 large cloves of garlic. In addition, you're also going to need some fresh Thai basil. Now, if you don't have access to Thai basil, you'll still be able to put together a really tasty stir fry. But this takes it up to a whole new level of flavor and deliciousness. So highly recommend using some of this Thai basil. We're actually only going to use the leaves, so I'm just going to break off the leaves and the tender bit of the stem. However, the large, thick, woody stems, we're going to discard that. So prep the leaves and keep them ready to go before you can start cooking off your stir fry. Now the next element of the stir fry is the sauce. With a stir fry, it's important to have all of your elements ready to go because the cooking time is mere minutes. I'm starting off with 3/4 of a tablespoon of sugar. If you'd like a slightly extra sweet sauce, you can bump that up to 1. And we're going to add in a tablespoon of light soy sauce. 1 tablespoon of dark soy sauce. Now your dark soy sauce is what will add a little extra depth of color and flavor to your stir fry. Next, we're going to add in some oyster sauce. This is the vegetarian version and I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of this. Now stir this really well until all of that sugar has dissolved. We're now ready to start cooking that stir fry off. I've got a large pan on some high heat to which I'm going to add a little bit of peanut oil. Now we're starting off with our mushrooms first because we want the mushrooms to develop a little color on both sides before we can add the rest of the veggies. Spread them out in a single layer and let them cook off for a little while or until they've got a nice little color on both sides. You don't want the mushrooms to cook through, but when they've got a little bit of color going, we're going to continue adding the rest of the veggies. Flip all of those mushrooms over and move them to one side of the pan. Add a touch more oil at this stage. I didn't add too much to begin with because the mushrooms tend to soak up all of the oil. I'm going to start off by throwing in the onions. And at this stage, the heat is on a medium-high. I'm going to stir everything around, and you will see I'm going to add the veggies to the pan almost one at a time. This is so that the pan stays nice and hot and each veggie gets its own cooking time without dropping that temperature too low. And that way it gets to develop a little bit of color as we proceed. Next, I'm going to add the peppers, all the red, the green, and the yellow. A little bit of a stir and cook off. And once the peppers have got a little bit of color and char going, I'm going to add in the broccoli. And we're going to repeat that process. Stir that around and let that cook off for a little while before we can move in with the rest. Next, in goes the carrots. Now, like you can see, I've cut the carrots in half and sliced them on the diagonal, but I've kept the slices fairly thin so that they cook through quickly. And you know the drill by now. We're going to stir that through and let that cook off a little bit. Remember, at each stage you're not looking to cook the vegetables off completely because they will continue to cook with the rest of the stir fry. You're just looking to get that initial bit of heat and sear almost going before you can proceed. And one tip to follow is start off with the veggies that you think and you know take the longest to cook and finish off with the ones that cook off fastest. Now next we're going to add in the zucchini. I like to have the zucchini develop a little bit of color. So instead of going through the process of putting them in first and taking them off, since they cook so quickly, I'm just going to move all the veggies towards the end of the pan and place the slices of zucchini directly on the pan just to give them a little bit of color. If you feel the pan is too dry, you can add a few more drops of oil just to get things going, and you'll see within seconds the zucchini starts developing a little color. And at this point, I'm going to go in with my snow peas. The snow peas cook off really fast. It just requires a few seconds in there, which is why we're adding them last. Give everything a good mix now, and you're going to continue cooking till your veggies have almost cooked through. Now this really depends on how well done you like those veggies. When I make a stir fry to serve either with noodles or with rice, I like to have a little crunch in those veggies, so you'll notice that I don't cook them too far. But this is just a matter of preference. You can cook them as long as you'd like. Once the vegetables are almost done, you're ready to go in with your spices and your sauces. So right in the middle, I'm going to put a tiny bit of oil again and add in my chopped chili and garlic. I add these at this point once the veggies are done because one thing I personally don't want in the stir fry is burnt garlic. This way, most of my vegetables are cooked through and I know that that garlic will be beautifully done since I've added them this late in the process. Now we're going to give everything a good stir to make sure that chili and garlic goes through all those vegetables. And at this point, you're ready to add the sauce. Now, since we put everything together in one little bowl, all you're going to do is dunk all of that sauce over the vegetables. Make sure you get out every last bit from that bowl. Stir everything through, and you'll notice that there's not too much of a sauce or a gravy going, which is fine. I'm going to add just about a tablespoon or so more of water just to get off all the remnants of that sauce from that bowl and add that to the pan. Give everything a good stir and you're going to let that sauce just about come to a boil and get nice and glossy. And at this stage, you're ready to take your stir fry off the heat. Now with your pan off the heat, you're going to add in your Thai basil leaves. This needs to go in right at the very end after you've taken the pan off the heat so that it retains most of its color and that freshness and flavor that it's known for. Give everything a quick stir. Now you'll notice that instantly the leaves start wilting and soften down. And that's all you're really looking for. Serve this over some nice hot rice. Thai jasmine rice works best. And we're going to serve this along with some fresh cucumber that we've sliced up. This cucumber just helps combat the heat level in the stir fry. For the stir fry, I used one bird's eye chili, and I'm just going to add a few additional slices of chili on the top because we really like our food nice and spicy. Serve this stir fry up with a wedge of lime or lemon, and that's it. Lunch number 3 is ready. Now, lunch number 4 is such an easy, breezy one. It's perfect when you don't have much time or when you want something really quick and easy to put together. I'm going to show you how I put together my hot dogs. There's probably a ton of different ways you can do this. Here's how I typically do mine. I'm using these Herb & Sons pork-free bratwurst sausages. I find that these are really tasty, and if you can find them on special at Coles, you're in for an absolute treat. Now, I'm going to start off by cooking off these sausages first till they're done. And while the sausages are cooking off, I'm just going to lightly warm and very slightly toast up some hot dog rolls. And now all that's left to do is put everything together. I first start off with some salad greens. You can use lettuce, you can use mixed salad greens, whatever you'd like. Place the cooked sausage on top. Now the condiments are probably my favorite bit. I'm starting off with a tiny bit of hot English mustard. You can use Dijon mustard or any mustard of your choice. Next, I'm adding in some finely chopped onion, a little bit of gherkin relish. Guys, this is what makes the hot dog that much tastier. If you've never tried gherkin relish, go ahead and give it a shot. I bought these while they were in special at Coles. And last but not least, a good drizzle of some tomato ketchup. And lunch is served. Everyone needs a little bit of a cheat day once in a while. This was my cheat day. I didn't really feel like cooking on this day, so these hot dogs were absolutely perfect for lunch. For our 5th and final lunch idea, I'm going to show you how I whip up my spinach gozleme. Before I switched to a plant-based diet, one of my all-time favorite snacks or meals whenever we were eating out had to be a good spinach and feta gozleme. However, I can't seem to find a vegan version of this anywhere, so I just decided to try making them on my own, and I was very pleased with how they turned out. I've made these a few times and we enjoy them every single time. Today I'm going to be sharing my recipe for a really good spinach gozleme with you. I'm starting off with 2 cups of all-purpose flour or plain flour. To this I'm going to add a little salt to taste and mix that up to make sure that that salt is distributed well. Now, adding water gradually. This is just plain water at room temperature. You're going to knead this flour to form a nice smooth dough. Remember, you don't want the dough to be too stiff, neither do you want it to be too soft. And eventually you should end up with a nice smooth pliable ball of dough just like this. Now we're going to cover this with a damp cloth and leave this to rest for about 15 to 20 minutes. While the dough is resting, we can actually start prepping our spinach for the filling. I'm just using some baby spinach here, about roughly 150 grams or so. I'm just going to quickly wash this thoroughly and drain it out. Drain off as much water as you possibly can. If you have a salad spinner, that would work brilliantly here. Or if you'd like, you can just pat it dry with a kitchen towel. I just tried and got rid of as much moisture as I could, and I'm just going to go ahead and proceed with the filling. I'm just giving my leaves a once over and getting rid of any leaves that seem a little past their prime. Next, I'm just going to slice up this spinach into little strips like you can see here. Once all the spinach has been chopped up, I'm going to add in a little plant-based feta cheese. Now, if you don't have access to plant-based feta, you can simply leave it out completely. It will be just a spinach gozleme and it will still be delicious. But for that realistic feel, we're adding a little bit of plant-based feta here. To this, I'm also going to add a light sprinkling of some red chili flakes. These are the hotter version of chili flakes, so use as much or as little as you'd like based on the variety that you've got here. Give everything a quick little mix and your filling for the gozleme is ready. This dough has been resting and like you can see here, it's a lot more slack than it was, but it's still not tacky or sticky. I'm just going to portion the dough out at this stage. I'm rolling it into a log and I'm going to cut this into 8 equal pieces. Roll each of these portions into a nice little ball. And when that's done, you're going to cover it with that same damp cloth and leave this to rest for about 30 minutes. Now this resting time is extremely crucial because when your dough is well rested, it'll be easier to roll it out without it shrinking back to its original size. Now while the dough is resting, we're going to whip up a quick tabbouleh salad. Now for this I'm using some fine bulgur wheat. You will also see these labeled as burgul. For the tabbouleh that I'm making today, I'm just going to need about an eighth of a cup or so of this, but I am putting together a slightly larger batch, and what I tend to do is I keep the leftovers and use them in grain bowls for meals during the week. So every packet will have instructions on how best to prepare these. Mine instructed me to use a 1:2 of bulgur wheat to hot water, and that's what I'm doing. I've got about a half a cup of the bulgur wheat here. I'm going to season that with a little salt to taste, and I'm going to add 2 parts water to this. So I'm going to add in 1 cup of water, hot water from a recently boiled kettle. Give it a little stir. Pop a lid on the bowl or the mug that you're using. I'm just going to use a little plate, but cover it completely, and you're just going to leave this aside for as long as your package directs you to, or until all of that liquid has been absorbed. Now in the meanwhile, we're going to prep our parsley. This is just some flat leaf parsley that I've got here. I'm going to use most of this bunch. Trim off the woody portion of the stalk towards the end. That tends to be a little tough and really isn't that great in a salad. However, it would work great if you were making a stock and you needed to add some seasonings or some flavorings to your vegetable stock. Wash and completely drain off your parsley. And if you have a salad spinner, that would be perfect here. But since I don't have one, I'm just going to lay this out on a plain kitchen towel and pat it dry. We don't want any extra moisture in our salad. Once that's done, we're going to chop up our parsley fairly finely. I've set the parsley aside in a bowl. Next, I'm going to add in 1 spring onion or green onion, both the white and the green bits. But I'm going to make sure that I slice this fairly thin as well. Next, we're going to add in some mint leaves. I've got a few sprigs of mint here. Again, I'm not going to use the twiggy stalk bits. I'm just going to use the mint leaves for the salad. Now I've had tabbouleh both ways, with mint and without the mint as well, so you can either use this or leave it out. It's completely up to you. I'm going to chop these mint leaves really finely and add them to the bowl as well. By now our bulgur wheat must be ready. Let's have a quick look. Like you can see here, those little granules have soaked up all of that liquid. They've swelled up to a fairly large amount. There's just a tiny bit of liquid in there. So I'm just going to leave that to sit just a little bit longer. If you're hard pressed for time, you can just drain off the excess liquid and use your bulgur wheat. Our salad is almost prepped. We just have to mix everything together. Before we do that, we'll move on and make up our gozleme. I've got Ashley, my husband, helping me in the kitchen today. So I'm going to do all of the rolling while he does the frying bits. I'll show you both processes. So we're going to start off by taking 1 little ball of dough at a time. Don't overwork your dough at this stage, because the more you work on your dough, the tighter it will get and the harder it will be to roll it out. Lightly add a little dry flour to your rolling board as well as on that ball of dough. Keep the rest of your dough covered with that damp cloth while you're working on each portion. Now we're going to roll this portion out as thin as we can. Once we've got a nice large disc made, we're going to add some of that spinach filling on 1/2 of that disc. Make sure you get a few pieces of the feta in here if you're using it, and try and get that filling almost all the way to the edge. Then flip the other side over and make sure that there's no air pockets built up in there. Now using your fingers, press together the edges of the gozleme to make sure that they're thoroughly sealed, else your cheese could melt and leak out of that little parcel. Now this gozleme then goes onto a hot cast iron pan, and you're going to fry this off for a few minutes on a medium heat until you get some beautiful light brown spots on that side. Once they're ready to turn, this is what it will look like on the bottom side. Like I said, little brown spots. You don't want that to get too dark just yet. Once it has cooked off with little brown spots on the second side as well, we're going to brush it with a little olive oil. You can see how beautifully they're puffing up right there on the pan. Instead of olive oil, you can also choose to use butter. And once you've done this on both sides, that's it. Your gozleme is ready. You can now take this off the pan and you're ready to serve up. Let's quickly finish off our tabbouleh salad. Like you can see, our bulgur wheat is nice and fluffy and cooked through. It has soaked up all of that moisture. Using a fork, I'm just going to fluff this around a little bit. And I'm going to chop up a few cherry tomatoes to add to the salad. Season this up with a little bit of salt. Add in some of that bulgur wheat. This bulgur wheat should have cooled down a little by now. Like you can see, I'm not adding very much here. I've probably added about a quarter cup or thereabouts of the cooked bulgur wheat here. Add some fresh lime or lemon juice to the salad. Add a hint of black pepper powder here. Toss everything together really well. Add a tiny drizzle of some extra virgin olive oil. Give everything one last mix. And at this stage, it's a great idea to check for seasoning and adjust the salt or the lemon as required. And your tabbouleh salad is ready to be served. Serve up your gozleme with this tabbouleh and a wedge of lime or lemon. And just before eating, squeeze a little bit of that citrus juice over the top. And you're ready to sit back and enjoy. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you like these kind of videos, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know what kind of recipes you'd like to see me put together. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you really soon with another delicious recipe. So till then, take care. Bye.